With the initial design for Nissa done and the story better defined, it's time to have a quick look at designing our other two main characters. Unlike Nissa, who spends her days in a fairly simple farming life on a distant planet, Emily lives in one of the most advanced cities ever constructed. Using the same design method that was applied to Nissa, and with her face as an initial reference point, we once again piece together a concept for Emily. Starting with a new set of eyes, we then add a nose from one of our already defined shapes, along with a newly designed mouth. On sketching in the overall face shape, and then just adding in basically the same ears that we used on Nissa, we end up with a pretty good starting point. Adding in hair leaves us with a general overall face concept design. A few minor changes and a bit of a different hairstyle gives us a design we largely had in mind from the start. Rounding out the concept with side views will ultimately be useful for later 3D modelling. As Emily is our tech guru, I pictured a fairly simple pose with her holding a tablet. Once again, the internet proves to be a great resource for reference, and with only a few minor tweaks, I had a general pose outline. As for the costume design, I already had a pretty good idea of what I wanted, and with only a couple of minor tweaks, the final look was basically done. Unlike Nissa and Emily, Rose has a much harder life, having to constantly watch her back in one of the now old derelict cities on Earth. The process is basically the same, starting with the eyes, then adding nose and a mouth, along with an overall face shape and ears. The overall goal was to come up with a sort of street rat look, but still somewhat related to the other two, given that they are sort of sisters. After a few overall adjustments in shape, size and position of the various features, along with a side profile, and we are ready to move on. For the initial pose, I had a bit of a cat burglar look in mind, and once again the internet provided a reference photo. Once the overall general costume had been decided upon, it was clearly too clean and new looking for someone on the streets, so we add some rips, tears, holes and patches, along with minor overall shape adjustments and a later version of the head. Of the three girls, the concept for Rose is the one I like the least, but at this stage I want to keep moving forward, and so we'll revisit the design with fresh eyes at a later time. Up to this point, we had been designing in black and white in order to focus on the overall shape and look without the added complexity of colour. Starting with the face, I always wanted dark hair, and while brown or almost black was considered, in the end a darkish red seemed fitting. Eyes needed to be blue, so it was just a matter of shade or tint, and for someone that works on a farm, bright red lipstick seemed out of place. For the combat outfit, a range of darker and muted tones were tried, finally ending with a subdued blue and reddish brown look. For Emily, the hair had to be blonde with deep brown eyes, and given her high-end lifestyle, more makeup than Nissa. Not sure how well the final vibrant hair colour will work once in 3D, but we will stick with it for now. The outfit colour choices are almost endless, including treating it as all one dress or as a separate blouse and skirt. At this stage we ended up with a more neutral earth tones, but that could easily change later in production. With Rose, I went for a bit of a mix between the two, while adding a little more dirt in keeping with her situation. For the outfit, I had in mind that while darker colours are more likely, as it makes hiding easier, trying to colour coordinate is much harder when choices are very limited. That leaves us with the currently final full colour designs for all three girls, with the next step being to create them in 3D starting with Nissa. However, that is going to have to wait till the next production diary. If you like this look behind the scenes and want to see more, or have specific questions or requests, then please click the usual YouTube buttons and or leave a comment below. If not, that's perfectly fine, and I hope to see you for the next one. Cheers.